My family has a background of engineering and innovation. My grandfather was a scientist with Bell Laboratories back in the 40s and 50s. He then went on to he was the head of research for Texas Instruments, who was the first to market with the silicon transistor, which is what's in all modern day electronics. So he was just inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame 3 years ago, so which is really cool. I think why it's important to invent for me personally is, it's just something I'm very passionate about. I've always been passionate about solving problems and, trying to figure out new ways of looking at things. And I think that leads to invention. I don't think I ever set out to invent stuff. I think I just get very interested in solving problems down at a detailed level, and out of that comes invention.
Invention is as old as human existence. People have a unique capacity to envision that which does not yet exist, to drive invention and innovation and push civilization forward.
The steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available.
From the printing press to the space shuttle, we never stop dreaming up new ideas that make the world a better place, improve our quality of life, and drive the world's economies.
There are entrepreneurs with faith in themselves and faith in an idea who create new jobs, new wealth, and opportunity.
Over time, these ideas and inventions have become known as intellectual property, or IP. In the United States, anyone with a unique idea can apply to have their creation, their IP, protected by the full authority of the United States government.
We have always succeeded because we have been the most dynamic, innovative economy in the world.
Since its founding, this system of protection has been a principal driver of our country's economic growth and job creation. It is a fundamental element of the American dream. But is that dream at risk?
The U.S. has been a beacon for so long in terms of innovation, the great inventors, the great products that are coming out of here. So you have seen many other countries sending their students here, sending their scientists and engineers here to try to emulate what we have.
They look around the globe and say, where am I protected? Where can I go and license my idea and get the reward that my years of investment are entitled? And more often than not, they come to the United States.
You talk about it as intellectual property. It's not financial property, it's your intellectual property. And that's something that has been really unique to the United States. When our forefounders developed the laws, it was the intent to say, come from anywhere in the United States. You don't have to have a penny, but you've got to get intellect.
In Article 1, Section 8, they said that the Congress shall provide to authors and inventors exclusive rights to their creations.
We were basically an agrarian, rural, not terribly wealthy society by the standards of the world.
We went from being massively in debt as a result of a lengthy and extensive war. We lacked a firm commercial base, and yet 60 years later, people were marveling at a country that was now producing the telegraph, the cotton gin, the sewing machine, and many other technical marvels that became the foundation of the Industrial Revolution in this country and an Industrial Revolution in many other countries.
In 2010, President Barack Obama observed that the key to our country's continued success on the world stage is to compete by generating new industries, by maintaining our role as the world's engine of scientific discovery and technological innovation. Take Dean Kamen, who has more than 500 US and foreign patents. Though Kamen is best known as the inventor of the Segway, his medical inventions and unique brand of genius have many calling him the modern-day Edison. From purified water for the developing world to brain-controlled prosthetic limbs, his revolutionary ideas have changed the world as we know it.
There are impatient, passionate innovators out there that want to improve healthcare and want to improve transportation and want to figure out ways to cure our environmental problems and our energy problems. But all of them are working hard at something for which there has to be an incentive, there has to be a gold ring if they succeed, there has to be some reward.
Intellectual property is crucially important for any small inventor or a startup. In some cases, it's all that we have.
Startups typically are not going to be turning something around within a year. It usually takes some period of time before this idea is refined. And during this entire time, of course, the company needs to be funded, it needs to attract talent, retain talent, and so forth.
And you can't actually become profitable unless you can protect your invention, because the big guys are going to come in, and if you make a brilliant invention that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars in new market value, then that's going to get copied for sure. And the only thing that protects you from getting pushed out of business because you're the little guy is your patents.
It is extremely hard to separate the story of American economic success from a story about the U.S. patent system.
Patents are the cornerstone of innovation, and if you look at every development that we as a country have experienced when we moved from the agrarian age to the industrial age, think about every single piece of machinery. They were all patented.
The United States patent system became the patent system that other countries in the 19th century copied.
Protecting intellectual property has played a significant role in America's history. I mean, you could go back to Edison, and you can go back before that to all of the innovation that took place in the 1800s and 1900s. At each iteration, our patent system has encouraged the disclosure of new inventions, and then people who come behind that and invent something new and better. And the system is really set up so that that's the way it works.
It was patents that brought the industrial age to the marketplace, that provided jobs, that moved people from Depression-era economics to the prosperity that we enjoyed as a country through most of the last century.
So, how does it all work? Well, it all starts with an idea, your idea. You wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant new invention and realize, this is valuable. I could build and sell this. But then it occurs to you, how do I keep someone else from stealing my idea for their own business? That's where patents come in. The patent declares to the world, I thought of this first. This idea belongs to me for a limited time. You get a patent application from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO, describe your brilliant invention, and submit it for approval. Experts at the USPTO review your idea to make sure someone else didn't patent it first. If your idea is in fact new and unique, you are awarded a US patent. Time to celebrate. The world is your oyster. You can now safely bring your idea to the masses, sell your product, and create jobs in the process. Or you can take this patent to investors, knowing they'll be confident in your ability to protect your idea from competitors. You can license or sell the patent to other companies that want to use it in their own products. Whatever you choose, you're now able to present your idea to the world, confident that it's yours and yours alone.
In a nation of inventors and originators, there must be special protection for its creative people. The Patent Office is set up to provide this protection through patents, copyrights, and registration of trademarks. The Founding Fathers laid the basis for this service in the Constitution to promote the arts and sciences, and they have not been let down. The American is a restless tinkerer, hardly ever satisfied with the way things have been done before his time.
Our lavish Elliptico world headquarters, named the world headquarters because at one point we had the shed quarters, which was a shed that I worked out of in Northern California. Britt and I started this company, we were 500 miles apart, and we stayed that way for 6 years, the first 6 years of the company. This is the grand showroom, and then we have our old prototypes hanging up on the wall. This is Alpha, first one we ever built. Brent built that in his side yard, and it flat out worked. First time I got on it, I went 20 miles, I hit 20 miles an hour. People were hooting and hollering, it was crazy. This is my corner office with a view. I used to have a chair, but I no longer have one. As you can see, we invest a ton of money into our infrastructure. Our heating and cooling, which you notice is non-existent. And I think it's just, you know, the Spartan existence of a startup.
The Ellipticals, the world's first elliptical bicycle. This category of device is in between two major industries, in between the indoor fitness equipment industry who makes indoor ellipticals and the cycling industry. And no one ventured into that void until we did, really. But if we couldn't obtain some IP around it, it wasn't going to be something that was worth it for either of us to pursue.
My background, long-time runner, and as I aged and continued to put the pounding on my body, I found myself less and less able to sustain that, to the point where I really couldn't run anymore for exercise. So I found myself going to the gym and using the elliptical trainer, and it was just like, it just was very unfulfilling. And then it hit me one day, it's like, what I really want is this thing outside, and somebody must make it. And so immediately went home, pretty excited actually, started Googling around, and there was nothing like it that existed, which was really frustrating and upsetting, because you know, I just wanted this experience of running that had been taken away from me. I just wanted it back. So that's where it came from. The first thing we did out of the gate was really focus on understanding what sort of intellectual property already existed. I think we wanted to make sure that if we were going to take this thing to market, that we'd have the opportunity to derive value from it and not have it be taken either through knockoffs or someone else who already actually owned the intellectual property. It was still super intimidating to actually try to do what needs to be done to get something to market. You got to form a company. We need to raise a substantial amount of money. We need to have a marketing infrastructure, a sales infrastructure, an operations infrastructure. Find a supplier. How do you find a supplier to build this product if you're just two guys living in California?
And then in parallel with that was, you know, getting a first proof of concept together as quickly as we could, aside from just understanding what IP was out there, but because even if there was IP out there, was this thing worth even pursuing because of, was it fun? Did it work? Was it viable? Why isn't this thing out here? So that was what led to the first bike you see hanging in our office, which is cobbled together out of parts from an old triathlon bike and rollerblades and pieces of wood and bits and pieces from around my garage. And what we were finding was we couldn't get anyone to bite on IP until this market had been proven, and that was going to come down to us doing it. It was kind of now or never, and you know, life wasn't getting any simpler for us. You know, marriage and kids and even more responsibilities outside of work were in our future, and like, if we don't do this now, we might not get a chance to. That was what it came down to for me.
So small businesses have a choice. Do they settle with a patent troll, or do they go out of business?
People that we call trolls. Small business that is getting subject to these trolling attacks because of trolls. Stop the patent trolls.
Time has expired.
It all started with a story. Malicious companies were buying weak patents and sending letters to technology firms, restaurants, and even mom-and-pop stores. They demanded money and threatened to sue for patent infringement if they weren't paid. Before long, the stories were everywhere, on Twitter, in blogs, even in newspapers. These companies were deemed patent trolls. But how prevalent is this problem, and what's being done?
We set out to solve a problem dealing with patent trolls, a problem that at most is 20% of the litigation in our system. Everybody is going to pay the price of this bill if it goes forward in its current form. We have a problem. Patent trolls are a problem, but you can't define what a patent troll is. And in order to deal with patent trolls, we're imposing a burden on the other people in the litigation system who are not patent trolls, and that's unfair.
The history of American innovation is an archive of technological breakthroughs, often followed by brief surges in patent litigation. In Abraham Lincoln's day, plaintiffs were called patent sharks, and President Lincoln, like today's leaders, had to resist pressing calls to overhaul the patent system and weaken inventor rights. Today's troll story has been told and retold in the media, fueling the public's perception that, despite what we see around us, the patent system is broken. In September 2011, President Obama signed into law the Leahy-Smith America Invents Act, or AIA, the most significant change to patent law in over 60 years.
This change in our patent laws is part of our agenda for making us competitive over the long term. It should be making it easier and faster to turn new ideas into new jobs and new businesses. And we should knock down any barriers that stand in the way.
This sweeping reform was intended to help American entrepreneurs and businesses bring inventions to market sooner, hopefully creating new jobs. The effects of the AIA haven't been measured yet, and less than 2 years later, Congress is being pushed to change patent laws to address the apparent troll problem.
It would be outrageous to dupe our political leaders into being distracted by this noise of these people that are abusing the patent system and conflate the issue of these noisy opportunists, mythical bad guys called trolls, mythical characters, with the idea that the way to deal with them is to undermine the patent system.
I find it fairly unusual that Congress, having just passed the AIA, would decide to jump right back into that with major pieces of legislation when we don't even know how many of the provisions of the AIA are going to work.
Thomas Massie is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Patents played a critical role in the launch of his engineering company long before he went into politics.
I see a lot of bad things pass in Congress, and usually the worst stuff happens the quickest. They don't want to give you time to react. They don't want to give you time to go back to your constituents and talk to your, for instance, in this case, universities and your inventors, because they're afraid that you will find out that really your constituents don't support this legislation.
There is substantial concern that we have gone too far already in the, quote, correction of the patent system. So what we have today is really a small minority of corporations that are really pushing this further changes to the patent bill.
I think that because they got some progress 2 years ago, some companies who don't value intellectual property think that the iron is hot and the time to strike is now.
The current situation might seem just like another bill going through Congress, but it's incredibly impactful.
There's some things about this pending legislation that are actually good and need to go in place, and there are some things that really need to be further considered. So you get an odd dynamic here where there's a proposal that doesn't meet the interests of the folks it's supposed to help, and you begin wondering what's going on here.
Knowing that big business is funding legislation writing, by the way, is not a news flash. And in every case, the guy that gets it in the teeth is the little guy. And you want to think that your elected representatives are alert to that and hopefully scrutinizing it.
The way Congress is approaching this problem is dangerous. They're not going in and trying to improve the patent process. They're trying to tweak the judicial system, the way that patents are litigated. And in doing so, they're going to affect the value of every patent in the United States. Because what they're going to do is they're going to make it harder for the little guy to assert his patent claims when the big guy steals his idea.
It's not that we can't have legislation which makes the judicial process around patents better, but must we do such sweeping legislation, or can we instead have a dialogue where we can allow these small entities that are doing very, very critical work that just cannot be done anywhere else to continue to do it the way they've been doing it since the United States was founded, and also improve the way the patent system works? I think that can be done.
We should be throwing gasoline on the little smoldering piles of innovation we see everywhere. The big players that have a lot of power just as soon slow all that innovation down because they like the position they're in.
If I were making products and selling them in a market, and my products had 300 patents that I had to license to sell that product, and I could get Congress to pass a law that would cut the price of all 300 of those patents in half, of course I'd be for that law. The problem with that is that if you devalue patents, you're going to have fewer inventors, and there will be nothing to market or sell or produce eventually.
Inventor and Massimo Corporation CEO Joe Chiani prevents hundreds of thousands of infant and adult deaths with his advanced medical innovations.
Massimo today would benefit from everything that's being proposed. Everything. But we cannot be so short-sighted to think by protecting me or protecting some other company from trolls, as they're called, that somehow we're not gonna mess up this wonderful ecosystem we have, where innovation can foster from garages. And companies that were not around could become the biggest companies of today.
Solving the problem of these trolls by undermining the patent system, to me, is sort of like responding to a fire in the wastebasket by flooding the building. It's crazy.
We've essentially gone and undermined the entire economy. Now there's a delayed effect. When they enact this patent legislation, it's not going to suddenly, oh, the economy's gone away. No, the ideas will begin to go and drop off. And we're going to begin to see there be fewer jobs, fewer opportunities. And guess what? America's going to begin to look a lot more like the rest of the world.
Startup investment is where patents really matter. We simply couldn't get our companies funded without strong patents.
If we can't patent what we do, we can't own the invention. And if you can't own the invention, you cannot justify the investment.
Without a patent, you really don't have any way to attract capital and bring your inventions to market.
Right now, we are dependent on a set of rules. When we make an investment, we make long-term investments. And to try to predict what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years is very difficult for an investor. So when those are constantly changing midstream, you now are changing our investment equation. That makes me scared as an angel investor to make an investment. So if we invest at one rate and all of a sudden the rate changes mid-stage, that's problematic. That really chases us away.
If you can't have confidence that the innovation that you're spending millions and billions of dollars on is going to pay off over a period of time, you don't spend the money. Period.
I had just quit my full-time job with the engineering consulting firm here to focus on Elliptico, and basically I was going to fund myself from my savings so that I could, start working on the next-gen prototypes. And it was about a week later that Brian called me up and said, "Hey, we got a problem."
Throughout that year when Brent was developing the proof of concept, I was periodically doing more and more searches just to keep searching and making sure nothing was out there. And sure enough, I found this patent. Turned out it was written by the guy who invented the elliptical trainer. So he had 16 patents to his name. He'd licensed his first 2 patents to the company Precor and then enforced them in a really long, enforcement battle. And it really established the elliptical trainer industry that's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. That all derived back to this guy. And so we were like, uh-oh, this is, we're in a world of hurt. So we made a decision to call Miller and just lay it on the line, and either we were going to get a license to that, we were going to get an exclusive license to his patent, or we were going to quit. And we cold call him, and he picks up the phone, and in 20 minutes, we basically hammered out the broad terms of what that license agreement was going to look like. That was one of the best days in this project, was when we signed that deal. That one piece of intellectual property was so valuable in our investor pitches, and so credible because of who the inventor was and what he'd done previously on the indoor space. We didn't just hold a patent, we held a patent with the claim structure that had been litigated by multi-million-dollar companies that probably ended up paying $100 million settlement to a different company, was something that our investors could really get their heads around and see that not only could this be a big industry, but if it gets there, the big guys might not be able to push Britt and Brian around as much as they otherwise would. That there was a real hope from the investor side that this could be a lucrative enough investment that it was worth the huge risk that the investor takes to back the company.
So we took our initial filing, and now have 6-7 issued utility patents in the US off of that initial filing, and a couple design patents. So now We have a very substantial patent portfolio, which we didn't just stop there. We said, hey, we've really thought about how to design and implement these products. We're going to bring them to market. We've even gone further from having this keystone patent is to protecting all these little nuances, which just further strengthen our position. And I think that's what gave us the confidence to charge on and really take on this daunting challenge for two guys to, form a company and bring a product to market. And I think there's no way we would have done that if we hadn't gotten that IP position squared away first. And that then allowed us to, launch a production product in 2010 and grow this company to 17 employees now. We have 10,000 bikes out in the world. So it's, it's been great.
Anything you do to undermine the speed at which you can get a patent, the quality of the patent, the certainty of the patent, will help big incumbents not have to worry about being toppled by great new ideas. And the public will lose because you won't see a lot of great new ideas.
Well, the folks that want to weaken our patent system have come up with this idea of a patent troll. Well, the problem is they've got another name for patent trolls. It's called non-practicing entity, or NPE. And the idea there is if you're not manufacturing it, then you're not really a legitimate inventor. And I wholly reject that notion. In fact, think of universities. Universities are non-practicing entities. They come up with the ideas, but they don't have the manufacturing wherewithal, nor should they, to actually produce the idea. So for universities to be vibrant and relevant in today's economy, their ideas need to be commercialized. And intellectual property helps that commercialization process. If you damage the intellectual property system in this country, you're going to damage universities.
What's going to happen is the U.S.'s opportunity to have high-value jobs, high-value products, is going to dissipate. You're going to see cheap knockoffs throughout the world. You're also going to see that the creative people that not only are in the United States, but are drawn to the United States, that go and bring in these ideas here, are just no longer going to see America as the place to do these things.
So the amount of technology out there now, the rate at which innovation can be done now, even by little guys, is so extraordinary. The concept that we would not want to encourage that, I think, is, again, because our leaders are misguided and misled by people that have objectives that aren't really clear.
So I think the message that the United States sends when it reduces the protection afforded intellectual property rights is we send a message to the rest of the world that they don't need to adopt rules. And it used to be, in my view, what the United States was doing when we were negotiating with our trading partners is we were telling them, copy our laws, not our products. And now I think that we are in danger of sending the opposite message and therefore will not be successful in getting countries to adopt strong protection for intellectual property rights.
Because if we're going to create jobs now and in the future, we're going to have to outbuild and out-educate and out-innovate every other country on earth. And if we make it too hard for people with good ideas to attract investment and get them to market, then countries like China are going to beat us at it and beat us to it.
There's about 9 different factories that are claiming to sell Ellipticals now, and they're all in the same region of China. And they've combined have 400 ads listed on the largest marketplace in the world. It's a Chinese internet site that is larger than eBay and Amazon combined. I actually thought this was funny. So this is Erin. She sits in the front. So her likeness and image that she did not sign a release for, I'll tell you that, is now being used by her favorite company, Wui Hongyi Crafts Limited. They're in China. We can contact them. That would be funny. Should we call her?
Give her a call. Let's try it. We're on speakerphone.
Hi.
Yeah.
Do you speak English?
Yes.
Great. Is this Wui Hongyi Crafts Company?
Yeah. This is
a listing called China Mountain Bike Elliptigo.
Yeah.
So do you manufacture, is Elliptigo a Chinese company? Do you manufacture for them?
Yes, I'm a manufacturer.
You're the manufacturer?
Yeah, I'm a manufacturer.
For Elliptigo?
Yeah, and the Street Strider.
And Street Strider.
Oh, and Street Strider. You're both, wow. Yeah. So is that the same, are Elliptigo and Street Strider the same company?
Yes, they're manufacturer.
Okay. So I didn't know that they were Chinese companies.
Okay, I will send the details, and I have many customers from the United States. I can, so if you have interesting, we can make a long-term collaborations.
Great. So, I mean, your prices are great. So I will text you or SMS my email and look forward to a quote.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye. That's super interesting. I didn't realize we were a Chinese company.
Unbelievable.
It's one thing to go after these guys in China, right? It's another thing to have recourse with them once the products get to the US. This is going to be whack-a-mole if we go after them in China. It's like this guy pops up, this guy pops up, this guy pops up. So really our defense here is to stop them at the shore, to not let them get the product into the country. And that's really the only way to do it. Because once they're in the country and people start buying them, you're not going to go sue Sally down the street because you see her riding by on one of these fake things. We're not going to go run her down and be like, all right, you need to give me treble damages for the purchase of that wacky thing you bought that you didn't know was knocked off, right? It has to stop at the border or with the retailer. And really the only way to do that is through patents. But at the end of the day, 2 years from now, when these guys are through the fishing phase and into production and now shipping to the US, it's going to be patents. Because if it's not patents, they're just going to name it something different, and then it's going into Target, and then it's coming on the street. If we were no longer able to enforce our patents, I'd be pretty upset. Personally, I'd feel like the rug got pulled out from under me. We're a very small company, and we've invested probably $500,000 in intellectual property. And we did that because that's a deal with the federal government of the United States that said to us, look, if you tell us what you've invented, we'll give you a monopoly on making, using, or selling that thing in this country. We, the federal government, will ensure that you're the only person that gets to determine how that invention is made, used, or sold here. That was the deal when we paid our money to the federal government. That was the deal when Miller paid his money to the federal government. And that was the deal when he got his patent issued, and that was the deal when we got our patents issued. That was the deal when all these people got hired. That's the deal today. If that's not the deal 2 years from now, when Trek, Giant, Specialized, you name it, is making knockoff Ellipticos, then that's a violation of contract in my mind. I mean, really, that is unbelievably unfair. You can't change the game when that much is invested in it.
Real improvement to the system lies, just like it does for much of the rest of life, in doing the day-by-day hard work that it takes to do a better job at things, to find all the little problems and to make them better. And that in turn backs into resources for the United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Now the good news for the taxpayer is that patent fees fund the patent office. The bad news for all of us is that sometimes Congress likes to raid those patent fees and take it to pay for another part of government. And when you do that, you're shortchanging our patent system, and you're actually shortchanging all Americans.
The agency has been whipsawed over generations with resources coming in and then spontaneously being taken away. And I will tell you, that is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for failure.
Let's put more resources there so that we can more quickly review more patents, get rid of the ones that are no good, give a high quality review to the ones that are good, and issue them quickly so that commerce can move faster, wealth can be created more quickly, people will get the next generation of products faster because people will invest in these new technologies. But there's not a single word in all this patent reform about giving more resources to the patent system. Nobody's interested in giving more power to the patent office, more high-quality patents to inventors, more incentive. What they really want to do is water it down, make it less certain, make it more expensive, because to the people that don't need patents, patents are a big threat. Innovation is a big threat.
Fix that, and you go a long way in that one stroke in putting the stable resources in place for the USPTO to go and achieve its mission.
100 years from now, everyone in this room, everyone around us is not going to be here. So we should do the right thing. And with that perspective, make good decisions. Make the decision that you need this innovation ecosystem to continue long after we're gone.
With startups, if your technology you've developed is reliant on patents and you can't assert them, if you can't enforce them, you're gone. It's like that. It's not a question of degree of market success. It's a question of, do you exist or do you not?
A thinly veiled attempt to undermine the core of the patent system by a few large organizations that just as soon not have to deal with the potentially disruptive new inventions of the future, to me, is misguided at the least. It's outrageous. And if they succeed, the unintended consequence of further adding uncertainty and cost to getting and maintaining patents will be, I believe, the largest single cause of the decline of innovation and therefore the economy in this country that I've seen in my lifetime.
The dialogue in the country has been to value innovation, value inventors. That made it a really cool thing for people to do. And in school we heard about Edison, we heard about Benjamin Franklin. When the dialogue starts to become, patents are bad, patent system is bad, you actually start to take that motivation away from kids to want to do things like that. And I think in the end, that's really bad.
I want my son to have those same opportunities that I had, that my grandfather had. If he did want to be an inventor, and I don't know if he will, he could take an idea and run with it and make something from it. And I think that idea is what makes our country great and really has put the United States in the position we are today. And we want to be, we want to stay in that position.